You are watching the Voice of Change channel, touching lives through music and message.
Throughout history, there have been countless stories, songs, poems about love. Welcome to the program where love writes the story. Welcome to Love Without End.
In 2017, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. To say that this news was absolutely devastating for my family and myself, this song, Teach Me, took on a completely new meaning. In fact, it became my prayer. It says, "Teach me, Lord, to trust in your wisdom. Teach me to have faith in your decision when I don't understand the reason and I find it hard to see. Teach me, Lord, to trust totally."
I was told as a young child that when trouble comes my way, I should take it to the Lord, and He would hear me when I pray. I was told that His answer would not always be yes, but whatever the answer, it would be for my best. There are times I come Teach me to have faith in your decision. When I don't understand the reasons, when I find it hard to see, teach me how to trust totally. Teach me how to trust totally. Teach me how to trust.
Teach me. Learning lessons about a God who is described as the creator of all matter and all things, all powerful, all knowing, existing everywhere, all the time, shifting through multiple dimensions of space and eternity. It can be daunting, especially when we are limited to the 4 dimensions of this physical world with the limited sensory perceptions that we have. However, within this context, the process of education, that is, learning about God, always opens doors to life-changing experiences that we at one point never thought was possible. As we know, reaching an educational point where the penny drops, so to speak, in other words, we see clearly something that once eluded us and seems so enshrouded with darkness and mystery, is an experience that brings an incredible sense of liberation and freedom, even though the path to that point seemed so tragic and bewildering at the time. It's called the journey of life. The journey, as we've often been told, is just as important as the goal or the prize of an eternal, joy-filled life in the presence of a loving God. Tragedy can be a milestone along that journey, a consequence of this broken world that we find ourselves in. However, with God, we walk in His presence and under His protection. Oh, I know that every human can identify with losing a loved one, and at times like this, our journey seems so wretched and awful, and we question God in a buzz of emotional confusion that seem to go unanswered. However, the discipline of focusing on the fact that God is still in control is the ultimate skill that we must learn. One of my many milestones in my journey was in 2009. I lost my mother, having already lost my father. She was the hub of the wheel we call family, the center of our maternal origins. In the midst of the illness that was diagnosed, we put the matter to God, confident in His intervention, but she still died a tragic death, witnessed by all 9 of her children on the day that we switched off her life support. As part of my own grief therapy, I composed a poem that I will share with you. It reflects our pain, but also our hope and assurance that God knows what He is doing. We need to learn to trust Him. We didn't think it would end like this. We thought God would pull her through. We planned for her recovery, you see. I mean, isn't that what faith would have us do? We didn't want to hear that God knows best or that He would help us stand the test. That was our mother lying there, and without her, life seemed so unfair. How would we cope? You mean, who would give us hope? No. No other plan would do. Yes, we resolved that God would bring her through. There's nothing more we can do, the doctor said. Her brain is damaged and she'll never leave that bed. The machine would keep her alive for now, but she was going to die. It was just a case of when and how. So we prayed and we prayed. Lord, you have heard our prayer many times before, and you have opened many a bolted door. But Lord, at this place and time, we have never wanted anything more than the life of our mother that only you can restore. But every day she just got worse and worse. It was as though she was under some kind of curse. The only thing between Mum and her creator was the sound of that wretched ventilator. Finally, we had to call it a day. We could not bear to see our mother this way. We prayed, even now, oh God, you can do the impossible. You can heal, and she can walk out of this hospital. Her life is in your hands now, they said. What do you want us to do? And we challenged them. You do something, or we will sue. Our hope now turned to despair. Why doesn't God do something, we thought? Does he really care? The doctor said it wouldn't take long. Maybe a day, maybe an hour, but the decision wouldn't be wrong. So we prayed one more time and we sang a song. They switched off the machine and there was silence. And then, oh, what a scene. We tugged and pulled at her lifeless limbs. Mum! Mum! Were our cries. Please breathe. Please open your eyes. We searched her whole being, looking for life, holding on to hope. Who amongst us would cope? This isn't what the doctor said. No, no, she can't be already dead. Unto God we unanimously cried. We pleaded, but our desperate cries seemed to be unheeded. In that moment she was gone, and the weight of our grief seemed like a ton. But God said, what do you have to offer? What could we have offered? But more of the same. God is not to blame. God had a better plan. He seemed to say, the cares of this life she must no longer suffer. No more heartache, no more pressure, no more pain, just sweet rest, asleep without measure. This life for her is done. Her new life with me is soon to come. She is in his care. And suddenly, it all seems so clear. The greatest lesson we can learn is to trust God.
What a moving account David has just shared. I shared with you on our very first program when I was introducing the whole series of programs that David will be presenting, and I refer to him as somebody who I call my bigger brother. Now, we're not biological brothers, but we certainly are close like brothers. Our families are very close. We grew up together. In fact, for every Billett, there is a Burton. Even down to the fact that David's youngest brother, his name is Kenrick, and I, the youngest Burton, am Kenneth. And my late brother, David, were, again, just a couple of years apart, age, and just like brothers as well. So our families were really close, and we were kept up to date of the situation when David was out in America, around the bed of his dear late mother, and the message came back that she had breathed her last breath, and of course we all felt it at that moment. Indeed, it was that particular situation, because we knew and were aware of the sort of pain and the angst that they were going through as a family, that actually inspired the writing of this song, in addition to thinking about situations in my own life where I have prayed and it seems that God actually hasn't come through. So the song begins with an understanding of prayer. I was taught as a young child that when trouble comes my way, I should take it to the Lord, and He would hear me when I pray. All right, so it begins with what our understanding is of what prayer is, that it's something that we use when we are in trouble. We pray. And then this next line, I was told that His answer would not always be yes, but whatever the answer, it would be for my best. So that's what we're taught. We're taught that God answers prayers, yes or no, or wait. But whatever His answer is, it would be for our best. He knows what is best. But this had to be one of those songs, to be honest, which was coming from a really honest place. And I wish as a Christian I could sit here and say, trouble, I pray, everything works out for the best. But Christians around the world will tell you, if only life was that simple. It really isn't that simple. There are times we don't have the answers. There are times we're expecting God to come through. And that's why this line, I await your intervention. So there's this moment of hope, expecting things to change. So this brief moment of hope within that sorrowful song, that sorrowful part of the song, and then it goes back to, but here I am, and everything's still the same. So the song is actually pulling around emotionally. It's starting with the reality and then a little bit of hope and then back to the reality. And then the chorus just changes. It goes into the major. Teach me, Lord, to trust. Because in the midst of our tragedy, the only hope, the only positive we can have is learning how to trust in God, even when we cannot explain a situation, because we cannot always explain situations. And we, as much as we can, as Christians, say, yeah, well, we trust in God, but a lot of times we're asking, why? Why did it happen in this way? And that's that pulling around. It's the tension in our own minds as to why God hasn't come through. But then just resigning ourselves to the fact, look, the only thing we can do, we can't do anything to change the situation, but the only thing that we can do is learn how to trust in God in this moment. But the sadness is still there, which is why we have this chord. It's nice and bright. Okay, that sad chord in the midst of that. So teach me, Lord, to trust. As I'm right in your wisdom, but I'm still recognizing I'm in pain. Teach me to have faith. Okay, a message of hope, a brief moment of hope in your decision. But I've got to resign myself. And that's what this all is. It's, I want to learn something, but I resign myself. I wanted to learn something, but I've got to resign myself to where we are in our particular situation. The second verse of the song, I think, is the most courageous I've ever had to be in my lyric writing. I try to be honest and draw on life experiences as much as possible, but there is still a little bit of safety when writing a piece of music. I don't want to go too far, too hard, or be a little bit too hard on God. But I very often explain to people when people say, why does God allow suffering to happen? I refer to the story of Jesus before his death in the Garden of Gethsemane, and also Jesus on the cross. In the garden, he's agonizing and saying, God, if it be possible to take this cup of suffering away from me. So that's the sort of sadness. I was taught as a young child that when trouble comes my way. And then he says, but nevertheless, Lord, not my will, but your will be done. I leave myself into your hands. And it's this moment. Teach me, Lord, to trust in your wisdom. So I'm trusting in you. My life is in your hands at this present moment in time, but it still hurts. It's still painful. And also on the cross, Jesus cries out the sadness. My God, why have you forsaken me? And then he resigns himself. Into your hands I commit my spirit. So I'm drawing on those as well. The fact that it's okay to ask questions, but it's okay to have this pulling around of emotions where you're asking the question, but then you're saying, look, God, I trust in you, but it's still painful, it still hurts. And the chord structures of the song and the lyrics of the song actually follow that pattern, the pattern of Christ's agony as well. And when Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me? He's actually not just saying those words, but actually quoting from the words of a psalm, Psalm 22. And many of the psalms in the Old Testament of the Bible, they are songs, and they are songs of people's deepest and most intense moments of their life. Psalm 77 is one which I recall reading some years ago, and it says, God, where are you? Have you forgotten to be merciful? There is a psalm, and it's just a sorrow song. It's like the blues. It really is just, my situation is so bad, it's hopeless. And it finishes with the words, if you recognize that melody, it's a song by Paul Simon called The Sound of Silence, Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. But actually, hello darkness, my old friend, the idea of darkness being a friend actually is not Paul Simon's words. They actually come right from the Psalms. Darkness is my closest friend is actually the words from Psalms. And very often throughout history, music is a way in which people have expressed their most dark moments in their lives. So within the song, I wanted that honesty, and that was one of the most audacious lines I think I've ever written. In the second verse, at times I find myself wondering if you're ignoring my request. And one would say, how dare you say that about God, ignoring? But actually, that was inspired by the words of Psalm 77. Are you ignoring? Have you forgotten to be merciful? At times I find myself wondering if you're really working for my best. That's not an easy line to write, because we're told God is always working for our best, but sometimes we're questioning God. That's a very, very it's a very dark place to be in your life where you actually question God, actually, are you really working for my best? Or you're challenging God's wisdom. But these are things that go through our minds, and it's okay. This is what this song is saying. It's actually okay to think these things, because it's not in any way dismissing God's sovereignty by doing this. You're doing exactly what you find in the Bible, the way that people actually express themselves, including Jesus Christ himself, when you are in tragedy. And one of the best loved verses of the Bible, or chapters of the Bible actually, is Psalm 23, and one verse says, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. It acknowledges that there is a valley of the shadow of death, but it's saying through it, I'm not going to fear because God is walking with me. And I could have finished the song, but there was another section I had to say more. This was like I had to get it all out. So it's quite a long song. And there's a section, in your word I read. So in your word I read that you could raise the dead, and you can do all these miraculous things. I know you can because I've read about it. You can work a miracle. And then it finishes with this line, Lord, what about me? So he's asking a very honest question. I know you can do these things, so what about me? Why are you not doing it for me? But then it resigns itself once again. It keeps going back to this. Teach me, Lord, to trust in your wisdom and have faith in your decision. I don't understand, but I just want to know how to totally trust you. And that's the prayer I'm going to pray, is that you haven't answered my prayer to do what I want you to do. It's hurting. I didn't quite understand your way and why you did that, but now my prayer can only be that you teach me to hold on and to have faith and to trust you in all of this. And my final words are that I have hope, because God sees the long story, the long-term situation. We are here on this earth. If we happen to make the Guinness Book of Records, we might live 120 and over. But God sees the bigger picture. So whilst we're focusing on the here and now, God says, actually, your life isn't just the here and now. There is more to it. So even though things haven't worked out for you here and now, I just don't see things in the here and now. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, if God had kept Dave's mother alive, she would not have been living forever. They would still have had to face that particular day when they're around the hospital bed, because there is a finite life which we all have. It's not infinite at this stage. But when we trust in God, we know that the future will go from which we live in now to a nice bright future.
The Bible tells us in 2 Timothy 1 verse 10, it says that Jesus on the cross abolished death, and he has brought that reality to light as news through the gospel. Good news. In Proverbs 3:5-6, it reads, Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Our prayer is that God should teach us to trust him, and that when he makes a decision, it's for the best.
was told as a young child that when trouble comes my way, I should take it to the Lord, and He would hear me when I pray. I was told that His answer would not always be yes, but whatever the answer, it would be for my best. There are times I come to you, Lord, with a desperate plea. I spent so many hours in prayer, down on bended knee. I await your intervention, expecting things to change. But here I am, and everything's still the same. Teach me, Lord, to trust in your wisdom. Teach me to have faith in your decision. When I don't understand the reasons, when I find it hard to see, teach me how to trust totally. At times I find myself wondering if you're ignoring my request. At times I find myself wondering if you're working for my best. I often ask the question, Lord, do you really understand? Could a perfect God really know the pain of mortal man? Should I continue? Should I stop? Or should I just give up? Are the questions I ask from time to time. When nothing seems to improve, when God does not seem to move, when the answers to my questions I can't find. Teach me, Lord, to trust in your wisdom. Teach me to have faith in your decision. When I don't understand the reasons, when I find it hard to see, teach me how to trust totally. In your word I read that you could raise the dead, and you could cause the blind to see, and you could do the impossible, work a miracle. Lord, what about me? Teach me, Lord, to trust in your wisdom. Teach me to have faith in your decision. When I don't understand the reasons, when I find it hard to see, teach me how to trust totally. Teach me how to trust totally. Teach me how to trust.
in the next episode of Love Without End. Please join us again.
And to find out how to get the recording of all of the songs in this series, visit croydonscagospelchoir.co.uk.